Hello, everybody. I'm Olivier Bault from the Ordo Iuris Institute from Poland, and my guest today is Alejandro Peña Esclusa, who is a longtime dissident from Venezuela, a former political prisoner of Hugo Chávez, who is now living in Italy, I think, right, Alejandro? You live in Italy now?
That's right. I live in Italy, yes.
Okay, and right now you're in Budapest.
Exactly. I'm in Budapest.
From where we're having this conversation, I'm in Warsaw, and you are the author of several books on the São Paulo Forum, a very important left-wing organization in Latin America. I've just read the latest book, which is about the electoral frauds of the São Paulo Forums. And before, I read a very interesting book you wrote, which is the São Paulo Forum's Cultural Warfare. So first, I would like to ask you to tell us, in short, what the São Paulo Forum is, because not everybody knows out of Latin America what it is.
Of course. Thank you for the invitation, Olivier. The São Paulo Forum is an organization which I've been investigating for 30 years now, dedicated 30 years of my life investigating this powerful organization. It was created in 1990, in July 1990, after the fall of the Berlin Wall. The left groups in Latin America, they felt that they were abandoned by the Soviet Union, which was being disintegrated. So they decided to create their own organization, an alliance of all leftist groups in Latin America, including, of course, the guerrilla groups, that is, violent groups, the terrorist groups. The name is Sao Paulo Forum because it was created in the city of Sao Paulo, Brazil, by Fidel Castro, who was then alive, and Lula da Silva, the head of the Workers' Party, Partido dos Trabalhadores in Brazil. In this moment, Lula is the president of Brazil. Originally, there were few organizations, members of the Sao Paulo Forum, but then it grew and it grew greater and has become now the most powerful political organization in Latin America. And why do I say is the most powerful? Because never in the past any international political organization had been able to have 10, 11 presidents at the same time. Let's say the Christian Democrats or the Social Democrats were never able to have 10 acting presidents at the same time, but the Sao Paulo Forum has achieved to do that. It includes, of course, the three dictators, that is Daniel Ortega from Nicaragua, Miguel Díaz-Canel from Cuba, and Nicolás Maduro from Venezuela, but also includes Lula da Silva from Brazil, Gustavo Petro from Colombia, and others, a total of 10 right now in this moment.
And how did they succeed? Because from what I read in your latest book about the electoral frauds of the Sao Paulo forums, they don't only succeed because they have popular support. Actually, they very often don't have this popular support, but they manage to win the elections, helping their candidates in different countries. How do they do that?
Well, originally, some of them won the elections cleanly. For example, in the case of Hugo Chávez, when he won his first election, he really did win the elections. But after that, he rigged the system, the electoral system, because sometimes people vote for them not because they like them, but as a punishment for the people who are in the government. They vote because they want a change, and they think these people believe in democracy. But once they're in power, they destroy democracy from within. In the case of Hugo Chavez, in the year, as it is explained in my book, The Electoral Frauds of the Sao Paulo Forum, which is available in Amazon in different languages, and it can be read also in Hungarian and Slovenian, Portuguese, English, and Spanish, of course. This book explains that Hugo Chavez discovered something very important in the year 2004. He noticed that the electronic system was being more and more used to manage elections. Maybe some of you don't remember, but 40 years ago, there was not electronic voting or electronic counting, totalization of the votes. But 30 years ago, they started to become, let's say, more and more often. So Hugo Chávez ordered the creation of a very important software electoral company, and he rigged the 2004 election by using electronic voting machines and electronic counting system. This enabled him to steal 2 million votes. That's how he, quote unquote, won the election. Actually, he lost somebody. And after he did that, he talked to all his friends in the São Paulo Forum, and he explained to them how wonderful for him was to perpetrate a coup d'etat, without using weapons, without firing a single bullet. Instead of using violence to take over power, he thought and he promoted the idea of committing electoral fraud. It's a new form, a more efficient, more modern way of perpetrating a coup d'etat. And this system, this method of stealing election was exported all over, not only in Latin America, but other places.
Like what places?
Well, the company that committed the fraud in 2004 now works in, let's say, all 5 continents. This same company that perpetrated the fraud in the year 2004 was accused last year of perpetrating a fraud in Philippines. For example, the system, not the company, but the system used in Venezuela was exported to Bolivia, and Evo Morales committed a fraud in the year 2019. And some of the countries, I don't know if they committed fraud or not, but I can tell you that the electronic system of voting and counting is not reliable because it can be hacked, it can be manipulated. I am of the thinking that elections should be done always, the old way, that is manual voting, and every vote should be counted manually as well, because all electronic systems are subject to manipulation, especially regarding elections, because it's the source of power. So if by bribing people, by manipulating the machines or the counting system, you can obtain the control of one country, well, that's an investment that many people is willing to do, because it depends depends the control of the governments.
I remember that in the United States they've had electronic machines for very long. So that's an electronic system. And do you think this is used to cheat in the American elections as well? I'm thinking in particular of the 2020 elections in the USA, where there were some doubts. What's your take on these elections? Do you think Joe Biden cheated his way to the White House?
Well, I cannot assure that. I mean, I would say like this: I cannot prove it, but there's enough suspicion to think that those elections were not, let's say, clean, were not objective. Why do I say that? Because the Democratic Party does not want people to have IDs for voting. That is, anyone, even foreigners, can vote in the United States right now without showing an ID. Also, the mail-in ballots, for me, are very suspicious. Nothing better than to go to a voting table, to a voting center, with your ID, with your face, with your person, and vote. Because if you use electronic machines, if you use mail-in ballots, if you use the possibility of voting without ID, then that kind of election can be manipulated. And there are suspicions. I mean, there are normal, logical suspicions, because those are definitely irregularities that should not be accepted in any election.
And the reason I'm asking this is that I read in your book, and I heard that before from people who know Latin America very well, that there is an international organization, the Progressive International, which is very supportive of the São Paulo Forum. And it was established by Bernie Sanders, I mean, by his organization, by his foundation. So it looks like the Democratic Party from the USA is also involved in these actions by the Sao Paulo Forum in Latin America to take over, if we can say so, the governments of the South American and Central American countries.
Well, we must understand that according to the left, the Sao Paulo Forum was a great success. People from Europe, from the United States, traveled to Latin America wanting to know how was it that one political organization could win so many elections in Latin America and control so many governments. So they wanted to learn from that experience. There was nothing to learn because sometimes they won because the elections were rigged. Sometimes they won because Hugo Chávez illegally finds other candidacies in different countries. And I repeat, that is illegal. And they cheated in many ways. This is well explained in my book, The Electoral Frauds of the Sao Paulo Forum. There are different forms of cheating in election, including receiving money from drug trafficking. That's illegal. That's fraud also. And many other things, manipulating the social media, manipulating the electoral lists to create new voters that don't really exist. This is explained in my book. So people from Europe, from the United States, travel to Latin America to see that phenomenon, that strange situation where the left had control of so many countries, and they exported their method. This is how, in the year 2018, it was created a larger organization than the Sao Paulo Forum, which is called the Group of Puebla. The name is Puebla because of a city in Mexico, and it was created there. Difference between the Sao Paulo Forum and the Group of Puebla is that Sao Paulo Forum works only in Latin America, but the Puebla Group includes not only Latin America, but also Spain and Portugal. But then, a few months later, it was created the Progressive International. And I would invite those who are listening to us or are viewing this interview to open their website. Progressive International, I think, is .org. But you can search it in any internet engine. Progressive International. And as you said, Oliver, it did. It was created by Bernie Sanders. But if you look at the members of the boards of directors, you will find they're members of the Sao Paulo Forum. What I want to say is this: an international organization that works in the 5 continents, created by a North American senator, a Democrat senator, Bernie Sanders. It includes in their boards of directors members of the Sao Paulo Forum, like Rafael Correa, former president of Ecuador, Gustavo Petro, actual president of Colombia, and Mónica Valente. Mónica Valente, she is the Secretary General of the Sao Paulo Forum. She is Brazilian. She also works with Lula in the Workers' Party. So the Secretary General of the Sao Paulo Forum, which has become a criminal organization, is in the boards of directors of a political organization created by Bernie Sanders. So since we don't have much time in this interview, what I would do is that I would invite all of you who are listening to us to do a small research on the Progressive International, and you will probably be surprised of the people who belong to this organization. And the most surprising and astonishing thing is that this is an organization created by someone important in the Democratic Party of the United States. So what I would say is that the Sao Paulo Forum is like a cancer, like a tumor that made metastasis that grew all over and also was able to infiltrate itself in the United States of America. Hopefully, now that uh, Donald Trump has become president of the United States, things will change. I really hope so, and I'm confident that that will happen.
Mhm. And can you tell us what kind of socialism it is about in this São Paulo Forum? Is it the old traditional kind of socialism that people had in Eastern Europe until the 1980s, or is it more the neo-Marxism brand of socialism with all this woke ideology where we have this socialism also in the United States, in Canada, in Europe? Uh, what kind is it? Because I know Cuba, for example, is still active in the São Paulo Forum. Is it the same socialism as before, or is it something new?
Well, actually, it is a combination because the Sao Paulo Forum has been created for 35 years now. So at the beginning, it was the old type of communism, socialism, when it was created by Fidel Castro. But then it has evolved, and it has connected with European and American socialism, and the Sao Paulo Forum has become more and more woke. I will give you an example using names. Nicolás Maduro, Hugo Chávez, and Fidel Castro represented, let's say, the old socialism, old communism, like Soviet Union. But then the new generation of members of the Sao Paulo Forum, like Gabriel Boric in Chile or Gustavo Petro in Colombia, they are totally woke. They are gender ideology. They promote radical ecologism. They promote abortion and this idea. So the Sao Paulo Forum has, let's say, evolved to become more quote unquote more modern, more efficient, and they have become more new, like new Marxism.
Mhm. And we've mentioned the presidential election in the USA, but you know Europe very well. I mean, you've been living in Italy for a long time. You travel a lot. You also have relations with the Hungarians. You work with the Hungarians, I think, actually, yes?
Well, actually, I'm a senior fellow from the Center for Fundamental Rights, which is a Hungarian think tank, one of the most important think tanks in Europe. Yes.
So you know our European realities pretty well, I think. And what do you think of what's going on in Europe? I mean, in Germany, they want to ban the AfD. In France, we've seen that the president, supposedly from the center, has allied with the extreme left to bar the party from the right, which had the majority in the votes, from having a majority in parliament. In Romania, they've cancelled the election after the first round of the election. In Poland, we now officially have militant democracy. That's what the prime minister is saying when explaining why he's breaking the law and the constitution, because it's militant democracy. He has to re-establish democracy after 8 years of right-wing conservative governments. Do you see any? I mean, I could cite other examples in Europe. They want to ban Twitter, for example, and other social media, or censor them. Do you see any similarities with what has happened in your own country, in Venezuela, and more broadly in Latin America?
Yes, yes, because I would recommend our viewers to read one of the books I wrote, uh, the Sao Paulo Forum Cultural Warfare. This book is also available in English, Portuguese, Spanish, Slovenian, Hungarian, Italian, the Sao Paulo Forum Cultural Warfare. You see, after the fall of the Berlin Wall, the Marxist movement understood that it was inefficient to promote all communism. That is a class struggle, the abolition of the private property, the old communism. And they decided to promote this new idea based on the founder of the Italian Communist Party, Antonio Gramsci. He is the ideologue of a new form of communist battle, which is not based on force, but is based on the control of the ideas, of culture. So they decided to conquer the universities, the communication media, and culture, to conquer the world of the ideas, so their ideas would conquer the world. These Marxist or new Marxist, I should say, ideas were promoted in Latin America, in the United States, and also in Europe. So parties that were formerly considered from, let's say, center or center right, because of this cultural warfare, have moved to the left. They're ideologically the same. The difference between a center party today and a leftist party is only economic, but culturally, they promote the same thing: gender ideology, illegal migration, the green catastrophe, etc., etc. Culturally, they're exactly the same. This explains why some, let's say, mild right-wing parties or center parties, they'd rather align themselves with the left than working with the right, even though they were originally right-wing parties, but not anymore, or at least culturally, they're not anymore right-wing parties. And they usually call people who are right-wing, they call them extreme right, radical right. This is not true. They have become leftist parties. This is what happened. So they are natural allies nowadays. And this is exactly what happened in Latin America. And they want to control the media, they want to control the judicial system, and they become more and more dictatorships. So I am worried, after living in Europe for a few years, that many of the methods used by the Sao Paulo Forum are also being implemented in Europe. Of course, there's no surprise because the Sao Paulo Forum has been expanding in Europe. I will give you a couple examples. The party Podemos in Spain was created by the Sao Paulo Forum and was financed by Venezuelan Hugo Chávez, and also by Evo Morales in Bolivia and Rafael Correa in Ecuador. For example, the party Levica or Levica in Slovenia was financed by the Venezuelan government, and the Italian party Cinque Stelle was financed by the Venezuelan government. In Poland, I don't know if there's a party financed by the Venezuelan government, but it's now has become a method. The Sao Paulo Forum uses their dirty money. I say dirty because sometimes it comes from criminal activities to finance parties all over the world. And not only do they give money, they export their ideology. So I would warn, I would alert the European people to be very, very aware of this danger because I think Europe must, my humble opinion as a foreigner who lives in Europe, that the values, the Christian values of Europe must be defended from this new Marxist ideology which is trying to destroy Christian civilization. Let me give me one more minute, Oliver, to explain to all of you that the idea of Antonio Gramsci, what he said is that it was impossible for communism to defeat capitalism without destroying the Catholic faith. That is what he said. That in order to impose communism, first, Christian ideas, Christian culture should be destroyed. This is what he said. And neo communism or neo Marxism bases itself on the destruction of Christian faith and Christian culture in order to win. So the Marxist cultural warfare is based specifically on this, to destroy Christian culture and to destroy the Christian institutions created in Europe since centuries ago.
Okay, thank you very much. That was Alejandro Peña Esclusa, who, as I remember, you told me was actually jailed by Hugo Chávez, not for criticizing Hugo Chávez himself, but for raising the alarm about the São Paulo Forum. Is that right?
That's right. I was a presidential candidate when Hugo Chávez ran, and I said many things about him, all true, but he wasn't worried about that. He really was worried when I started to travel all over Latin America explaining what the Sao Paulo Forum was. And then he ordered my jailing. He ordered the judicial system controlled by him to put me in jail.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so thank you very much. So this was Alejandro Peña Esclusa, and yes, I would advise our viewers to read this book, a very important book, the São Paulo Forum's Cultural Warfare. And this second book is also very important. It's about the electoral frauds of the São Paulo Forum. I have it here in Spanish, but you can read it in English and many other languages. So thank you very much, Alejandro, and see you sometime, I hope.
Yes, and thank you very much for the invitation, Oliver. The best for you.
Thank you.